During a family meeting, my husband announced he's divorcing me to marry my stepsister. They'd been having an affair for 3 years. I just said, "Check your emails, right now." The look on their faces. When they realized what I did, my name is Kesha Sterling, and this story, well, it isn't one I ever thought I'd have to tell. I make my living digging into other people's secrets. I'm a digital forensic analyst. I find what's hidden: deleted files, lost messages, buried timelines. But no matter how much you think you know about truth, nothing prepares you for the day it sits down beside you at your own dinner table. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment where you're watching from. It really helps more people find these stories, and it lets me know you're here with me tonight. It was October in Atlanta, the air just cool enough for sweaters and long drives with the windows cracked. My father was turning 65, and my mother had turned the whole house into a celebration. Brown sugar ham, mac and cheese bubbling at the edges, laughter floating from every room. For a few hours that afternoon, it almost felt like the world still made sense. Brandon was standing across the room, glass of red wine in hand, talking about one of his little patients and how the kid had woken up from surgery smiling. Everyone adored him. He had that calm doctor charm, the kind that makes people lean in and trust. I remember watching him, thinking how proud I was that he was mine. Then he tapped his spoon against the rim of his glass, clear, deliberate, practiced. That sound had always meant something good. Our engagement, his promotion, our first house. This time it sounded hollow, like a bell rung underwater. "I need to make an announcement," he said. Chairs creaked. My mother set her fork down. My father leaned back slowly, eyes narrowing. Brandon drew a long breath and looked at me, then somewhere past me, as if the far wall would help him through the speech he'd rehearsed. "Kesha and I are getting a divorce." The air changed shape. You could feel it press against your skin. He paused, letting the silence do half the work, and then added, "There's more." His hand reached across the table, brushing past the gravy boat until it found the fingers of the woman sitting beside him, my stepsister Sasha. "Sasha and we've fallen in love." For a second, no one breathed. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room. My mother whispered, "Oh my God," barely audible. My father's jaw locked tight, and everyone turned to me, waiting. They expected broken glass, shouted words, a scene. Instead, I felt an eerie calm settle over me, a clarity that tasted metallic. I lifted my water, took one measured sip, and said, "Please, everyone, check your emails, right now." That was it. 9 words. The fuse lit. Phones came out. Notifications chimed like a string of distant alarms. Eyes widened. My father's face darkened. Brandon's confident smile wavered. The truth was already in their hands. Every message, every receipt, every lie. But to understand how we got to that table, you have to go back 8 years. To the night I met him. It was a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital of Atlanta, all crystal chandeliers and polite laughter. I was there representing my firm. We'd just donated a security upgrade. Brandon was there in a tuxedo that didn't quite fit his shoulders, talking not to the donors but to a little girl in a wheelchair. He was making her laugh so hard she snorted. That was the first time I saw him, and something about the way he crouched down to her level told me this was a good man. We married a year later under the oak tree in my parents' backyard. He cried through the vows. I laughed through mine. Our first home was a fixer-upper north of the city, all peeling wallpaper and promise. We spent weekends covered in sawdust, arguing about paint colors, believing we were building forever. The first crack showed up 3 years ago. It didn't look like danger. It looked like family. Sasha, my stepsister, called from a bus station in Chicago. She'd run out of money, run out of luck, run out of places to chase herself. "I just need a little time," she said. "I'll get back on my feet." I didn't even think. "Come home," I told her. Brandon hesitated when I mentioned it that night. Are you sure? He asked. Having someone here might change things. She's my sister, I said. She has nowhere else to go. He smiled, soft and convincing. Whatever you think is best. What was supposed to be 2 months turned into 6? At first it felt good, the house full of laughter again. Sasha was wild and restless, everything I wasn't. Brandon said she reminded him of sunshine after a long shift. I thought it was harmless. Looking back now, every warning light was blinking. I just didn't want to see it. He started working later. She started running errands that took entire afternoons. There were inside jokes that left me out, glances that lasted a beat too long. When I walked into a room, conversations stopped. But I told myself they were family, and family meant trust. I remember a cookout that summer. My mother leaned over while we were in the kitchen. Brandon and Sasha sure get along, she said, eyebrows arched. I looked out the window. They were setting up the badminton net, laughing. That's good, I answered and kept chopping onions. I can still feel that sting when I think about it. The discovery came on an ordinary Tuesday evening. Brandon was on call. I was home finishing a report. My phone was dead, so I grabbed his laptop to order takeout. The browser opened to his personal email. I wasn't snooping. I was hungry. But one subject line stopped me cold. From Sasha Monroe. Subject: Last night against every instinct, I clicked. Last night was incredible, she'd written. I can still feel your hands on me. His reply sat right beneath it. We have to be more careful. I don't want to hurt Kay. 2 sentences, and the world split clean down the middle. I scrolled. More messages, months of them, then years. 2 years of secret holidays, hotel rooms, whispers typed out in pixels. 2 years of my life rewritten behind my back. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I closed the laptop, stared at the blank wall, and felt something inside me click into the place where emotion used to be. The analyst took over. I created a folder on my encrypted drive. Case 734. Evidence folder. Exhibits to follow. The next day, while he texted me good morning from the hospital, I was mapping locations from our shared account. Boutique hotel downtown, weekday afternoon. Restaurant bills. Gas charges near Sasha's new apartment. Each one cross-referenced, dated, filed. I'd built timelines for strangers. Now I was building one for myself. A month later, he said he had a medical conference in Charleston. I checked. There wasn't one. I waited anyway, sitting in my car across from a luxury hotel in Midtown, camera ready. 20 minutes later, his car pulled up. Sasha stepped out, hair catching the light. He walked around, opened her door, touched her back like he'd done mine 1,000 times. I took 3 photos. Click, click, click. Evidence. That night he came home smelling of hotel soap, telling me about lectures and networking dinners. You look tired, he said, touching my cheek. I am, I answered. It was the truth. I was exhausted from pretending. I thought about confronting him, but confrontation gives liars a stage. I needed a record, not a scene. So I kept collecting. Credit card statements, GPS logs, text backups from his cloud. One night I found a thread that broke whatever was left of my restraint. Brandon. She's so buried in her work she wouldn't notice if we did it in the kitchen while she typed. Sasha. She'd probably thank us for making the decision for her. She never knew how to be a real wife. I read that twice, then 3 times. The words didn't hurt. They erased. After that, I wasn't a wife anymore. I was an investigator preparing a final report. He must have sensed the distance because he switched tactics. Gaslighting, gentle concern, then accusation. One evening he sat me down, handed me a folder. We need to talk, he said gravely. Inside were printed emails between me and a coworker, Marcus. Only they weren't real. He'd cut and pasted, changing dates and sentences to make them look romantic. "I know about you and Marcus," he said, voice full of wounded dignity. "How long has this been going on?" The audacity almost made me laugh. He was building a defense before the trial had even started. "Those are project updates," I told him. "And you know it." He shook his head sadly, pretending heartbreak. "I just can't believe you'd do this to us." That's when I realized confrontation was useless. I was dealing with someone who'd rather rewrite reality than face it. I needed help. So I called a private investigator, Ray Jenkins, retired cop, desk full of old coffee cups. He flipped through my evidence, whistled low. "Ma'am, most people bring me suspicions. You brought me closing arguments." Then I found an attorney, Celeste Dubois. Sharp, calm, everything I wasn't at that point. She explained that Georgia doesn't punish adultery in court, but financial deceit changes the math. I didn't want revenge money. I wanted the truth documented so clearly it could walk into any room and speak without me. Celeste studied me a long moment, then said, "The court of public opinion can be harsher than any judge." Those words stayed with me, because by then I'd discovered the money trail. Small, regular withdrawals from our joint savings, reappearing in a private account under his name. He'd been funding his new life with our old one. And when I cross-checked dates, the pattern sang. Money moved right before his weekend calls, hotel stays matching deposits. He wasn't just unfaithful. He was stealing the foundation out from under me. Then came the final invitation, my mother's text about Dad's birthday dinner. "Don't make it awkward," she wrote. It was perfect. 3 days before that dinner, I compiled everything, messages, photos, statements, into personalized emails. My father's contained the finances. My mother's showed the way they'd used her errands as cover stories. My cousins got the timeline. My aunts and uncles, the receipts. I scheduled them to send at 7:25 p.m., right after dessert. The morning of the dinner, I felt an unfamiliar peace, the kind that comes when the worst has already happened, and you're just delivering the paperwork. I baked Dad's carrot cake, wore the blue dress Brandon used to love, and packed my laptop in my purse, just in case. When Sasha texted, "Can't wait to see you tonight, let's not make it weird," I typed back, "Wouldn't dream of it." That evening, the house smelled like my childhood. Family laughter, gospel softly from the kitchen radio. Brandon and Sasha sat together on the couch like they'd earned the right. Everyone was pretending not to notice the tension. Dinner went normally for 40 minutes. We laughed about football, retirement plans, the weather. Then Brandon tapped his spoon against the glass. And you already know the rest. His speech, her smile, my 9 words, phones lighting up, gasps, my mother's shaking hands, my father's eyes going cold. Brandon stammered something about privacy, legality. I told him calm as ice. "Everything you see came from devices left logged in our shared home. Digital forensics, Brandon. You forgot who you married." Sasha started crying. The practiced tears that used to work when we were kids. But this time nobody moved to comfort her. My cousin read a line from one of their messages out loud. "You can't control who you fall in love with?" he repeated, disgusted. My father stood then, his voice like stone. "Enough. Get out of my house." And just like that, it was over. The night after that dinner, I sat in my car for a long time outside my parents' house, watching the porch light flicker. Inside, voices rose and fell, shock, anger, heartbreak, all of it blending into a low hum. I didn't go back in. There was nothing left to explain. When I finally drove away, Atlanta looked different. The skyline that used to feel like possibility now felt like closure. I turned off the radio and listened to the tires hum against the asphalt, the sound of something ending and something else beginning. At home, the house was too clean, too quiet. His shoes still by the door, his jacket still on the hook. I walked from room to room like I was cataloging a crime scene. I didn't cry. Not that night. The tears had already done their shift months earlier. Now there was only calm, cold, and exact. The next morning, I opened my laptop and created a new folder. Aftercare. Inside it, I filed copies of the divorce petition Celeste had sent overnight. Everything moved quickly after that. Brandon didn't contest. He couldn't. The documentation was airtight. Even his attorney kept the call short, professional, defeated. While the paperwork crawled through the courthouse, the fallout spread faster than gossip usually does. Family group chats lit up. My mother stopped answering Sasha's calls. My father blocked Brandon's number entirely. The cousins took sides, but mostly they just went silent, because silence is what shame sounds like when it lands in a family. I stayed out of it. I went to work, kept my head down, met deadlines. I was still the same person who solved other people's messes for a living. I just had one less illusion about home. The first weekend after he moved out, I stripped the bed, boxed his clothes, and carried them to the garage. The smell of his cologne hit me in a wave so sudden I had to sit down. It wasn't grief, it was muscle memory. I stayed there on the concrete until the air cleared. Then I loaded the boxes into the trunk and dropped them at a donation center. That night, I slept on the bare mattress under a single blanket. It was the best sleep I'd had in a year. Days became weeks. The house turned into something else. My own workspace, my own quiet. I started playing music again, low jazz humming through the speakers while I cooked. I filled the kitchen with the smell of garlic and rosemary instead of tension. I stopped checking the door at night, waiting for headlights that no longer came. When the divorce was finalized, Celeste slid the papers across her desk with a small nod. "It's done," she said. "You're free." Free. Such a simple word, so heavy when you finally earn it. I left her office and drove to Piedmont Park, sat by the lake, and let myself breathe. The wind off the water carried the sound of kids playing somewhere behind me. It felt like life had gone on without me and was politely waiting for me to catch up. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt piece by piece. I changed my name on every document back to Sterling, the name that was mine before anyone borrowed it. I found a small apartment near Midtown, all sunlight and clean lines. The first morning there, I stood barefoot in front of the big windows watching the city wake up, and I realized I didn't miss anything I'd left behind. Sasha tried to reach out once. A long message filled with excuses and half-apologies. "We didn't mean for it to happen," she wrote. "We were just broken people who found comfort." I stared at the screen for a full minute, then deleted it. Some messages don't deserve storage space. Brandon never wrote. The hospital gossip eventually reached me. He'd transferred to a clinic out of state. Maybe he thought a new zip code could erase what he'd done. It doesn't matter. What mattered was the quiet. Coffee brewing in a kitchen that finally felt mine. Plants thriving on the windowsill. The faint buzz of my computer as I opened new cases for clients who still trusted me to find the truth. One evening in early spring, I drove back to my parents' house for Sunday dinner. I hadn't been there since that night. My mother met me at the door, her eyes tired but softer. "Your father's in the backyard," she said. He was under the oak tree, the same one where Brandon and I had exchanged vows years earlier. The grass had grown back over the spots where chairs once stood. He looked up when he heard my footsteps. "You okay, kiddo?" he asked. "I'm getting there," I said. We didn't talk about the past. We just sat there in the fading light, listening to cicadas start their evening song. When he finally spoke again, his voice was low. "You did what you had to do. Some truths need daylight." I nodded. "Daylight hurts, though." He smiled. "So does healing." That night I left their house with leftovers and a strange peace. The world hadn't gone back to normal, but it had found a new rhythm. A few months later, Celeste called to let me know the last financial settlement had cleared. I thanked her, closed my laptop, and opened a fresh document. For the first time in a year, it wasn't labeled case anything. It was labeled plans. I wrote down 3 lines: travel somewhere new, buy a telescope, tell the story. That third one sat there, daring me. For weeks I ignored it, afraid of reliving everything. But stories only lose power when they're told, so I started writing. Not as evidence, not as revenge, but as a record of survival. That's the story you're hearing now. I know what you might be thinking. Why not forgive? Why not forget? The truth is, forgiveness isn't a door you open for them. It's a window you crack for yourself so you can breathe again. Forgetting isn't necessary. Understanding is. Understanding that betrayal says more about the betrayer than the betrayed. That quiet dignity outlives spectacle. That peace, once you find it, is louder than any confession. Sometimes I still drive past our old house. The porch light is different now, the flower bed's neglected. I don't stop. I just glance once and keep going, because that chapter has no more ink left for me. The city feels wider these days. I started running along the Beltline again, slow and steady, headphones in, sunrise ahead. There's a freedom in knowing every step belongs to you. One morning, I caught my reflection in a storefront window. Same face, new steadiness. I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in a long while. And that's when I realized, this story isn't about betrayal. It's about reclamation. It's about a woman who turned evidence into emancipation, who found that the quiet after truth isn't emptiness, it's space. So if you're listening to me tonight and you're living inside a story that hurts, I want you to know, the ending is already yours to write. You don't need to explode to be free. Sometimes all it takes is 9 calm words and the courage to stand still while the truth does its work. Before I go, thank you for being here with me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It means more than you know. This is Voices of Auntie Ruthy, and I'll see you in the next one.